Well, this is Matt Lake again. Let me just introduce you. We got with us today Thomas Burke from Christopher Burke Engineering. This is our Hickory Ridge Lake Apartments Flood Control Improvements Project. The project is located east of Cleveland, north of 57th Avenue. We've done some preliminary work that Thomas will probably talk about with hydraulic modeling, topographic survey. And the one thing we're waiting on before we move towards full engineering was going to be getting an easement recorded and signed and recorded. And we received that just recently. So we felt comfortable moving forward with the submittal to you guys. We're looking at design, engineering, and permitting. Again, we're looking at 50% of the design and permitting costs. The cost total is $162,000. We're asking for $81,000. Overall, this project we anticipate will be about $2.2 million. And again, I'm going to be using American Rescue Plan money that we received from the town as part of our cost share for this. And with that, I'll let Thomas take it away.
All right, thanks, Matt. Share my screen.
Mr. Burke, please do the introduction thing for the whole record, please.
Thomas Burke with Christopher Burke Engineering, working with the town of Maryville on these Hickory Ridge apartment flood control improvements.
Thank you.
Welcome. Oh, just kind of give you an idea where it's at in Maryville. US 30 in the bottom, I-65 over in the right. This is right off of Cleveland, kind of in the center area there. As far as what's going on right now, there's 12 apartment buildings that have multiple units that have flooded multiple times during heavy rain events. The flood of there's area that comes from the northwest, over 200 acres. There's also Meadowdale Lateral that is immediately to the east of this Hickory Ridge apartment building that will can cause water to back up into this area. It has a detention pond built a long time ago, doesn't meet today's requirements. We also have an area on Cleveland Avenue at 56th and Grant that will flood. Meadowdale Lateral itself does not have mapped floodplain, but it has 5 square miles that are coming through there. This is a picture of the close-up of the Hickory Ridge apartment complex. The blue arrows on the top show the offsite area that's coming towards Hickory Ridge, trying to flow around it, but what happens today is it flows through it. If to the right is just to the right of the screen is Meadowdale Lateral. And this shows what the proposed improvements are. In the red here is a flood control berm that's meant to protect, tie to higher ground and protect these 12 apartment buildings from the flooding that could occur either from offsite area coming from the west, as well as the connection to Meadowdale Lateral to the east that can back up and flow there. We're proposing a pump station that's shown here in green. We're also proposing a backflow preventer, as well as detention, over 8 acre-feet of detention that's meant to slow down the water so that we're not exacerbating problems on Meadowdale Lateral. We've done some initial modeling and some initial calculations to get to this point, but that is the overall project. Along with to help with the flooding on Cleveland, we're improving conveyance across under Cleveland into this detention pond. It also helps with localized flooding over here. So those are the main components of the project that we're looking at designing. It's conceptual right now. As I mentioned, 8.4 acre-feet, trying to control 206 acres, reduce the sedimentation, improve the 12 apartment buildings and multiple units in those apartment buildings from flooding, improve water quality, wildlife habitat, recreation. And this is also part of the 2014 Maryville Stormwater Master Plan. As Matt mentioned, the easement has been acquired by the town. We'd have to get core permits, DNR permits, and IDEM permits. Completed preliminary engineering, easements, topographic surveys, some hydraulic modeling, and a right of entry construction agreement. As far as the cost goes, anticipated design and permitting cost is $162,000. The request is for 50% of that, or $81,000, to be split with the town. And the overall project cost based on conceptual is about 2.3 million. That includes a sizable contingency, design engineering, construction engineering, and permitting. This is just some of the things that are part of that 2.3 million that we anticipate, which is the pump station, a lot of storm sewers, a lot of excavation, etc. Questions?
All right, back to the board. Any questions for these gentlemen? I'll have one. It might be for Mr. Lake. I mean, for the town of Maryville, you know, we've been talking and doing a lot of different work. Is there an overview that you could also include in your submittals as it relates to how they're tying all together and how we're looking at the progression to try to take care of all this stuff, say north of 61st Street or all around Turkey Creek, just to help us kind of keep track of what you're all doing and how those are going, because this is all, you know, water knows no geographical boundaries, as we talked before. So that would be helpful. Also, you know, I don't know if it's at this phase or, you know, later, but also with regards to the maintenance of all this stuff and how that's going to work, especially when I see pump stations. That's the first thing that we're looking at doing, because have those dollars associated with making sure we're on top of the things that need to be maintained. So things like 2008 don't happen again.
Yeah, with regards to how all this fits in the big picture, we could also include the study that we did in Gary and the regional attention that we had identified that's needed up in that area as well. We just finished this past year, last year, the regional Meadowdale basins that you guys had, again, funded 50% of the construction costs. So that's all in. So yeah, we have made a lot of progress.
Right, and the progression though, Matt, though, would be helpful is just maps, you know, just on how that flow goes instead of giving me another 73 reams of paper to read.
Yes.
Right? So then here's the kind of the things that we've been progressing. Here's what we're got to next. And then we're also going to have some idea of maybe being able to help as things come up on what other things are going on to look at the next progression of projects.
Yes, and with respects to maintenance too, that was part of the easement agreement. As you can imagine, there are a lot of attorneys involved. So we would be responsible for a portion of the maintenance of this particular basin, and they would share in the cost and some of the maintenance of the pump station and things like that.
Now, is the owner of the apartment complex involved in this, or is this strictly a municipal project?
Yeah, and that was the challenge. You know, this was a high priority project for us, but it was hard to nail down because ownerships change and things like that. And then we were making progress on getting the easement before ownership changes. So now we got to go back to step one and have the meetings and keep going through the process. And so this is a high priority project for us, but I didn't feel comfortable moving forward with anything until we had the property secured. Otherwise, it really can't become reality until that happens. So, and that's why we're at this point today.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Ware?
Yeah, I guess question about, I thought I saw 24-inch culverts you were going to install. Does that take into consideration future possible development on the west side of Cleveland? I mean, right now it's all farmland, but you have that included in the red shaded out area. At some point, I'm sure it's going to be developed. Does that come into consideration in your engineering study?
I would anticipate given the ordinances of today, so that's taking existing flows that are going there. If that area west of Cleveland is developed, I would assume that they would have significant detention, at least to meet today's ordinance requirements that would need less than a 24-inch, that based on detention requirements, they would be releasing less than what the existing release rate is. So I think a 24-inch would be sufficient.
Would be sufficient if that farm line was developed for residential.
However, it was developed and it provided the detention in accordance with today's standards.
And we do know that the owner of the property, the farmland, it is a hobby farm. It was purchased to be a hobby farm for many years to come. I don't want to state the owner's name because I don't know if it's good on record or not.
No, all right, thank you.
Gentlemen, any other questions?
Yes, I have a question
Mr. Gazdecki.
Matt, this is Tom Gazdecki. You indicate that there's a number of permits required, including one from the Army Corps. What is that? Well, how are they involved?
I'm sure we'll need a 404 because of, this tributary, because we are impacting a water of the US. So meaning lateral 6 as well, because we're going to be running this water into lateral 6. And there's a bit of channelization to the north. It doesn't look like it on the exhibit here, but that's channelized a bit. So they may claim jurisdiction on that as a water of the US. So it's going to be up to them to make that jurisdictional determination, but that's what we anticipate.
Okay, thank you. And then would you also do me a favor and just clarify this budget of 162,000? It would be in addition to the 2.23 million. Is that true?
Yeah, well, right now, this is just for engineering and permitting. After that, the construction cost is estimated about 2.3 million.
And the value you have assigned for design engineering and construction engineering is strictly for that 2.23 portion of the work, not this portion of the work. I'm confused by your
Correct.
15% or so, 18% from permitting and engineering on your budget. Is that 380,000 inclusive of this 162 or in addition to?
So the 162 is just to take this from concept through design and permitting. Okay, I see your question is not because you have permitting here as far as the 2.3.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So you're correct that there is some overlap when we include design engineering and permitting as part of that 2.3, but I mean, what's overriding anything is 25% contingency because it's conceptual design right now. So you are correct that there is some redundancy between the 162 is part of these two numbers.
Okay. And then one more favor, and this isn't really, I don't think, related to this application, but would you be able to provide us a breakout of those four major cost components? The control berm being one, the pump station being another, the storage basin being the third, and then the Hickory Ridge storm sewer improvements being the fourth.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, gentlemen.